Robbo and Don Hutchison. We welcome in Craig Burley. Craig, I'll start with you. It's a final. We don't usually expect them to be all that aesthetically pleasing. What kind of game do you think we get tomorrow?
Well, no, you're listening to Dan Thomas too long. I think we do. A lot of the finals, these days the pitch is perfect. Obviously, there's not going to be an atmosphere because of the scenario with the pandemic. So it'll be a little eerie because it's a showcase, domestic showcase game of the season. It's obviously happening in August, which is a first, I would imagine, ever. But look, there are two sides that will try and go forward. And in some sense, Arsenal have stopped doing that a little more against the better sides because they've been caught open, trying to take teams on head to head. So certainly against Man City, that was their approach: sit in, dig in, hit on the counter attack with the pace, and really utilise City's Achilles heel, which was their defending and the lack of protection of a back four. So it'll be interesting to see what approach Arteta's side taking this match in terms of how much to try and get on the front foot, try and boss the middle of the park, try and put Chelsea onto the back foot, because in the two league games this season, albeit one without David Luiz sent off after 26 minutes, Chelsea have been dominant in terms of possession and efforts at goal. So we know what way Chelsea are going to play. I think it'll be intriguing to see just the approach that Mikel Arteta takes.
Robbo, is a conservative approach for Arsenal the best approach?
I'm not sure they are going to defend quite so deep, because when you've got Giroud up front, there's no worry about people running in behind you. Pulisic plays, he's somebody who wants to get on the ball and run with it. He's not going to run in behind you. Willian the same, if he's fit enough to play, he's not going to make the forward runs in behind you. He's going to run with the ball at you. So I think Arsenal can play that little bit higher and then try and win the ball back in midfield and still play their counter-attacking football, but slightly higher up the field with their pace they've got in the front three of Pepe, probably Lacazette and Aubameyang. And Aubameyang's going to be key for Arsenal, the way he can run in behind the wing-backs of Chelsea and get down the side of the right-sided centre-half.
Don, is it that straightforward? We've got two teams, each struggle defensively, each have incredible playmakers in the final third. We should have an open game?
I think it'll be an open game from Chelsea's point of view. I don't think Mikel Arteta will make it an open game. I think he'll try and copy the tactics like he did against Liverpool, like he did against Man City in the semi-final. I think he'll play with three centre-halves for sure. He'll have his wing-backs when they haven't got possession nice and narrow. And he'll have his midfield too, whether it be Xhaka and Ceballos just sitting in and trying to protect. I mean, them two actually are in decent form, but I don't see them being a matchup in the middle of the park against Chelsea. So I think Chelsea will bring a good game. I think they'll dominate the ball and massively dominate possession. It's just, can Arsenal dig in like they did against Man City, or do they lose a very early goal and then all of a sudden they're chasing the game, which I don't think would be the right thing to do for Arsenal.
Don, we gave you some homework. Pick the 11 for Chelsea in the FA Cup final. Where do you think the toughest decisions are for Frank Lampard?
Well, he's got a couple of players fit now. He's got Willian and Kante fit. So, listen, he's got a headache whether he brings Kante back into that midfield and Willian at the top end of the pitch. But in my mind, if I was sitting down with Frank, or Frank's picking his 11, I think he goes with more or less the same side that beat Wolves 2-0 and kept a clean sheet. I think at the top end of the pitch, he's pretty set in Giroud. I think Mason Mount and Christian Pulisic alongside him. Kovacic and Jorginho in the middle of the park. I would understand if Kante come in for either of those, probably Jorginho. But at the same time, when you're picking this 11, I think if everyone, I think if me and the boys pick this 11, I don't think would be too many players out. I think we'd probably guess 10 of them.
Craig, I wonder what you think. Would you go with Kante over Jorginho, given the fact that Kante supposedly now is fully fit?
Well, he's apparently fully fit from the injury, but he's not fully fit in terms of match fitness. And the problem here is both of these defences need protection in front, and we know Kovacic and Jorginho are not the greatest defensive midfielders, so that's Kante's forte. But you're asking to bring him into an FA Cup final with a lack of match fitness, and that's a big decision to make. And I think for that reason, he's probably going to be on the bench. I do think Willian might miss out as well, and he's been an excellent player for Frank Lampard for most of the season, but he's really put his trust in Mason Mount. And Christian Pulisic has really nailed down a starting slot. I know he missed the semi-final. I think he had a little niggling injury. He didn't start at Liverpool because I think Lampard kept the same team that beat Man United. But when he came on in that game, he was fantastic, played well against Wolves, and he's definitely not going to miss out. So I think the big decision really is is probably in front of the back line. And I suppose, what kind of back line does he go with? We've seen both these managers chop and change from back fours to back threes to back fives, and both have the option to do that.
Robbo, your assignment was to put together Arsenal's probable 11. Where are the tough choices there for Arteta?
Well, I think he'll stick with the same formation, the 3-4-3 that beat Manchester City. I think he'll stay with Pepe on the right-hand side, Aubameyang on the left, Lacazette through the middle. Ceballos and Xhaka will be the two midfield players who aren't great defensively. I mean, Xhaka can't get around the field. I think he'll go with Saka at left wing-back rather than Maitland-Niles. Maitland-Niles did well against Man City, but Saka, I think, is the better player. And then that means Tierney plays as the left-sided centre-half, and he's done a good job there. The one weakness for me is David Luiz, of course, the centre-half, but more so Holding if he plays as the right-sided centre-half. You know, if people can get at him, particularly Pulisic, run it in 1v1 situation, he's not a good defender. That would be a real worry for me. And Bellerin will come in at right wing-back. So that's the formation I think he'll play.
Sebi, and just to that point, I think one thing that Chelsea will try to utilise, and I think we may see Mason Mount or Christian Pulisic both coming in, certainly not at the same time, but, you know, maybe rotating, coming in and playing behind Giroud in that game to try and make the extra man in the middle of the park, because I think Chelsea will try and shift those two players about, Ceballos and Xhaka, for the reasons that Robbo mentioned, because quick passing around those two, they're not going to be able to get close enough. We know Xhaka's disciplinary record is poor. He makes rash challenges. So I think we'll see both Chelsea's wide men take up a more narrow position at times to try and overflow and flood that middle of the park to really get the upper hand in that Arsenal midfield, which isn't the strongest area of the team.
Robbo, I know he's only had like 7 months in the job. Many of those months have been without soccer. What would a trophy in this match do for your impression of Mikel Arteta's first half season at Arsenal?
Well, when you're a manager that comes in, Mikel Arteta has done okay. He's got more discipline to the side. He did well by getting rid of Guendouzi when he was playing up. You know, he gave an example to the rest of the players. I think there's more discipline in the way they play. I think they've got a game plan where they haven't always had a game plan in the last 3, 4, 5 years. But remember, they've lost to Brighton away. They've lost to Aston Villa away. They've lost to Olympiacos in the Europa League, really poorly at home when they're in control of the game. So winning a trophy, all managers, when they first come into a job, we question whether they're going to win a trophy. Mauricio Pochettino, we say he did a brilliant job at Spurs, but never actually won a trophy. So that's why he was always questioned. This will set Mikel Arteta up for the next season, the season after. If he can win this FA Cup, it'll be a major bonus for him and the club. And I think he will take Arsenal to the next level. What that next level is, I'm not quite sure.
Craig, we've asked it here on this show. Who needs this trophy more, Arteta or Lampard? I don't think it's particularly close. It would seem to be very obvious that Arteta, given the fact they finished 8th and that if they don't get this, there is no European football, absolutely needs this more.
Well, I don't know if any of them really need it. What they both need. I mean, this trophy, and for all the things that Robbo said about Mikel Arteta there, that stands true for Frank Lampard as well, because both these clubs have a rich tradition in this competition, particularly in the last 15 or 20 years. And, you know, both of them will want to get that trophy under the belt at one of the big clubs to say, look, I've shown I can win trophies at a big club. Now we get on with the rebuild. Chelsea are further down the road with their rebuild. But in some sense, and I don't know if it's going to make a difference to the ownership of Arsenal, the Stan Kroenkes of this world, but if Mikel Arteta's standing needs any more blown up to his bosses, his ownership, his board, then he can go to them with an FA Cup final if he wins it and says, listen, I've only been in here 6 months. It's not the strongest squad. I've put City out in the semi-finals. We've beaten Chelsea in the cup final. Now give me the resources to go and rebuild this Arsenal team. Because let's be frank about it. A couple of weeks ago, they were sitting 10th in the Premier League. This is a side that needs a rebuild. And to try and coax some more finances out of ownership, sometimes it takes something like this to try and convince an owner, a chief executive, that he'll loosen the purse strings, because actually I've got a little bit more confidence in this guy than I first thought. So from that scenario, I think it probably is Mikel Arteta.
Don, if we're talking about a rebuild, I would think European football is a pretty big part of that. How critical is this match for Arteta and the rebuild at Arsenal?
Yeah, it's right for all the reasons the boys mentioned. I mean, if he wants to, have a crack at next season and try and finish in the top 4, he needs more players. He needs funds, which I personally don't think he's going to get. I think he's going to have to be clever in the transfer market. There's reports in England today that there might be a swap deal involving Guendouzi and Philip Coutinho, which would be a good move for Arsenal, but still, it's not going to strengthen him at the back where, we've been saying for a decade now, Arsenal need to build from the back. In my opinion, they've got a very good goalkeeper, Martinez. I think he's their number 1 anyway. And then try and build from there and bring in, potential world-class players. They're not going to get world-class players at Arsenal because, the bigger teams are already probably at the front of the queue for those world-class players. So build from there. And if you can add the likes of Philip Coutinho, I think that'll be a good signing. But it's always the midfield and the centre-half which worry me. When I watch Arsenal play, over the years, they've been, very gung-ho, especially against the top sides away from home. They've carried passengers left, right and centre. But now I think, as Robbo said before, there seems to be a game plan. You can see it. You can see when Mikel Arteta's putting the plan together. And it's not always going to come off because of the personnel that he's got. But you can see the direction that he's going in. And to win an FA Cup for both managers would be a fantastic achievement in a short space of time. But to answer the question, I think with Frank obviously sitting in the top 4, got loads of money coming in. We've seen Timo Werner and Hakim Ziyech already signed, and I think there's more to come at Chelsea. I think Mikel Arteta needs the FA Cup more than Frank does.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.